All right, all right, all right. Good morning. It is Monday, April the 10th, almost 9 a.m. Central Time, and Sales Sherpa has not gone live in a while. So I thought it would be a great idea to kick off a new week with a live presentation here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I think we're also streaming live to our YouTube channel as well. And so today we're going back to our very basic premise of what is a selling framework. Now, when it comes to growing sales and scaling sales for a company, our very first task is to conduct a critical examination of a company's selling framework. Now, a lot of people aren't familiar with that term, especially at small and mid-sized businesses. So what I'd like to do in this brief presentation is just take a quick moment to describe it and to explain it. And so when we talk about sales framework, we're talking about the structural elements that are necessary to guide and support how an organization sells its products and its services to its customers. Now, a few things about this. The elements can be very informal. They can be very formal, meaning that they're formally stated. If they're informal, then it's just kind of ad hoc. There are some small organizations we've worked with where we came in and started working with them, and all they had was, well, our salespeople just sit down and call people in the phone book, or just start dialing to try to make sales. But what we want to do when we're trying to optimize sales and trying to really get the maximum efficiency out of a sales department and create a competitive advantage out of a sales department is we want to streamline this as much as possible. And it needs to be formalized as much as possible, because if you take a quick examination of the best sales organizations in the world, their selling frameworks are very well defined. They are not left to chance, and everybody really knows what the playbooks are. So in this framework, when we are working with a small or mid-sized business, we're going to examine their sales department through this framework, through the lens of this framework. And what that starts with are four critical elements that we look for. The very first, of course, is marketing. And when we talk marketing, we're going to talk about the buyer's journey. I know that's kind of cut off there a little bit. Now, the buyer's journey is really just, again, a very simplistic way of looking at marketing. We're not the marketing experts in the world. We don't pretend to be. We don't want to be. There's plenty of marketing experts out there. But when we're looking at a sales department, we want to make sure that the marketing and the sales functions are perfectly aligned with each other. And so we're examining a marketing effort or a company's marketing effort really through this age-old model of the AIDA. It's been around about 150 years or so. It's very well known. And it's very flexible. There's dozens and dozens of variations of it. And just about everybody learns it in Marketing 101 if you've ever taken a marketing course. Now, the first A in that model, of course, is the attention stage. And this is where the attention of the buyers is captured. And this is usually tied directly to one of four things: a product, a service, a problem, or even an opportunity out in the marketplace. And once we have that buyer's attention, we want to pique or capture their interest in it, build their interest. We need to keep their interest, and we need to keep on building on that interest so they move into that D phase, the desire to either learn more, or in this case, the desire to go into the last A, which is action. Now, in this framework, the action always leads to contact with a salesperson, and that's the sales process. Again, a little bit cut off there in the visual. Probably should have tested this a little bit better. But the sales process is where the salesperson and the buyer come into contact with each other. So this framework, this model that we're talking about, is not necessarily for e-commerce. It's not for the Amazon sellers, the Etsy sellers, people who are just trying to do everything without the human touch and have technology do all their selling for them. In this framework, that buyer always comes into contact with a salesperson. And in that instance, that's where the sales process takes over. So when that process is really a step-by-step customized kind of dance for each organization, for each salesperson. And a few things about it. Number one, every company, every salesperson has a process. Whether they know it or not, whether they admit it or not, whether it's formal or informal, they have a way of doing things. And that's basically what a process is. It's just a repeatable way of doing things. Okay. Now, what we have illustrated here are some very general phases or stages that sales process might go through. So at the very beginning, you see lead generation. If salespeople are having to self-generate their own leads, they have a process for doing it, whether it's in telemarketing, email marketing, social marketing, carrier pigeon marketing, or smoke signals, whatever it may be. They have some way, some process by which they are generating their leads. Now, if they have a marketing department generating leads for them, which the AIDA model above it does, then when they come into contact with that buyer, they are qualifying that buyer. And so there is a process, a step-by-step way that they actually qualify those buyers. They either do it well or they do it not so well. But then the next step goes into the sales presentation. And that's where they're basically making their pitch, so to speak. And then, of course, whenever there's resistance, they have a process to handle the resistance or the objections that that buyer may come up with. And then lastly, how do they close and how do they retain their customers? So that's the sales process. Now, the next phase of this framework, or the next piece of this framework, is actually the sales pipeline. And let's go back. Okay, so sales pipeline. And so the pipeline itself is a tool. Okay. Regardless of what maybe some of the sales gurus on the internet out there say, sales pipeline is not how sales are conducted. It's not the step-by-step process. The sales pipeline are the tools that the organization uses to help quantify the number of buyers that they have going through their process at any given time, and to manage them through those stages of the process. Now, back in the day when I got started in sales, and this is going to show my age here a little bit, CRMs, the software was kind of expensive. And so I didn't even really have the money to afford it way back then in the 1990s. So I had a bunch of 3x5 note cards, and each note card was used for each prospect that I had. So I'd have, Mr. Jones, CEO of Acme Corporation on that, and all my notes were on that card. And then I had that hard plastic box with the dividers in it, January through December. And it, kind of reminds you of grandma's recipe box, right? Well, each one of my cards went into the appropriate month. And then whatever month I was on, I had another set of dividers, 1 through 31. And that told me how I was going to manage those customers on those days, or those prospects on those days. That was a tool. Wasn't very technological. Now we've got a lot of easy tech. Some people may refer to this pipeline as their tech stack. You got a CRM, maybe you're using a Salesforce or a Dynamics or a HubSpot or a Zoho or a Pipedrive or one of the other dozens of CRMs that are out there. Maybe you've paired that up with a sales enablement platform and a content management system. But all of that tech stack, whatever, plus any other tools that are, say, low tech, all come into managing that pipeline. So theoretically, you could even say, hey, my telephone counts as part of the pipeline because it's one of the tools that I use. Okay, so that is the pipeline. Now, the last piece to this is how is this working? Is the selling methodology. There we go. I'll get the hang of this. So the selling methodology is the skill set that the individual salesperson uses to move that buyer through the process of becoming a paying customer. Okay, or I should go this way. There we go. Now, that skill set is, again, either very formally created, very formally developed, or maybe it's kind of ad hoc. We all know those salespeople who are just kind of shoot from the hip, kind of wing it kind of people. Okay. We also know those type of salespeople who go to every seminar, take every training class. They become masters of their craft. They're continually honing their skills. Well, the methodology here is not just that skill set and how the salesperson approaches it, but also from an organizational point of view, which methodology is going to work best for your selling framework. And there are dozens of methodologies out there. You're probably familiar with some of these terms like spin selling, a solution selling, advanced spin, advanced solution, Sandler selling, Challenger method. Sales Sherpa is one of them, okay? But there are dozens of them out there. And if you take the wrong type of methodology into into your environment, into your framework, it's going to work against the results, against having the best results you possibly could. So we want to look at this as a machine, and each one of these are just the basic parts required for your selling function at your company, to really just be cranking out sales, to give yourself a competitive advantage, over others in your market. Because selling is one of the few places where you still can have a competitive advantage. Customer service is another place where you can have a competitive advantage. I think it was Peter Drucker said, look, price and product can always be replicated. Customer service, on the other hand, is where you can create advantage and sustain advantage. And really, that customer service starts when you first get into contact with that customer. That's in the selling function. So the sales function works hand in glove with that. So that's what we're looking at when we are comparing or when we're analyzing organizations and how to grow their sales and to scale their sales. And what we'd like to do is, if there's any way we can be of assistance to you, your company, help you grow, especially in these economic times where there's a lot more uncertainty about what the future holds. Are we going into recession? Are we not going into recession? When will it begin? This has to be one of the most forecast recessions I remember in all of my history. And I've been in the business now going on 30 years. And even some of the people who are a little bit older than me, they start talking about how this is, again, one of the most forecast recessions that we've ever experienced. So if there's one thing that small and mid-sized businesses can do during the recessions to really insulate themselves, it's to outsell their competition. It is the small and the mid-sized businesses do have an advantage over the large enterprise organizations, because for a $10 billion organization to outsell a 10% decline in sales, they've got to really work hard. Okay, they've got to really just do some extreme efforts to make that marketing work, to make that selling work. Now, if you're a small mid-sized business with under, say, 100 million in sales, if you're 10 million in sales and you take a 10% decline, in that sales because of the recession coming up, it's a lot easier for you to replace that 1 million in sales if your marketplace is, say, a $60 billion market, than it is for that $10 billion competitor who has to go out there and capture more market share. All you have to do is capture a tiny sliver of that market compared to your large competitors who still have to go out and try to grab a large chunk of that pie to outsell their recession. So great way that you can do it. Would love to talk to you about it. Just direct message me if you'd like more information. And thanks for listening. We're going to try to do more of these. And I promise that the quality will get a lot better. All right. God bless and keep on selling.